Welcome to RythmInno. This company creates a platform for young, talented people in African continent, which this company helps to give all types of infrastructure to start new business or entrepreneurship or startup ecosystem. So this company creates bridge between African talented people and Chinese mentors and investors. It helps to bring new ideas, new talents, and creates new opportunity for African young people who cannot access proper infrastructure. RythmInno it also creates a platform for training the young generation about blockchain technology, about artificial intelligence, about graphic designing, freelancing, everything. So today we are discussing about a topic, Chinese Belt and Road Initiative in Africa. So why it is so important for African countries? Because we all know that many African countries cannot afford to build infrastructure development by their own fund. You know that infrastructure is the key way to develop a countries or continent, because Chinese initiative helps to create massive infrastructure in Ethiopia and many countries in Africa, like sea road, like air, seaport, and everything. Also, China takes initiative digital Silk Road. So in this way, like Chinese are investing massive way in making digital infrastructure in China. So my dear audience, today we are discussing about how China can cooperate more and more way in African continent. I am Moshir Rahman Bhuiya. I am a community manager RythmInno. So today we have a guest. So at first I need to introduce with them Hussein Askary, board member, the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden. And other guests, Yusribin Saleh, CEO, RythmInno and Denmark. And he is also Vice President, African Council for Investment and Development. So welcome to our guests in our session.
Thank you very much, Moshir.
Thank you so much. Now we would like to go in a main discussion, Chinese Belt and Road Initiative in Africa. I would like to invite our guest, Hussein Askary, to give your valuable speech about this burning topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you. With the RythmInno, I guess it's innovation is your brand. And my name is Hussein Askary. I'm a Swedish Iraqi citizen. I born in Iraq, but I live in Sweden now. I became a board member of the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden in 2018. And before that, and still I am the Southwest Asia coordinator for the International Schiller Institute. And the Schiller Institute have been working for many, many, many years, since the 1990s, in developing the idea of what first was called the Eurasian Land Bridge, the New Silk Road, into the international global, what is now called the World Land Bridge, to connect all continents physically together and usher a new age of economic cooperation to replace the age of geopolitics and wars. This whole project was developed under the guidance of an American economist, Lyndon LaRouche, who developed a new concept of economics, which we call physical economics. And you will understand during my speech why I focus so much on physical economics, which also has a lot to do with the human person, with the human mind, which is the greatest wealth in our view of economics. Now, since you started talking about the digital Silk Road and digitalization and artificial intelligence, so on, this is growing in importance internationally, it's very important to realize, as you said, that Africa is a very, very young nation, or continent, not one nation, it's a group of nations, but the whole continent of Africa. I mean, we have 1.3 billion people in Africa today. By 2050, we will have 3 billion Africans living on the continent of Africa. By 2000, 40% of the world's population will be Africans. That's almost half of the world population will be Africans. Now, if you look at the demographics, is that 20% of all youth in the world are in Africa. We have, that was already in 2015, it has changed. The median age of an African person is 23 years. In Germany, the median age of a German citizen is 49 years old. We have big problems with demographics all over Europe, Japan, even in China, unless they change course, we'll have very old populations all around the world. But in Africa and Southwest Asia and other parts of Asia, we will have a very young population. In Africa, 60% of the population of Africans are below the age of 25. So this is a huge wealth, human resource, but also the young people are also mostly oriented towards the modern technology, especially information technology, telecommunications, and so on. So according to the World Bank, 300 million Africans are farther than 50 kilometers away from the closest broadband or fiber optic broadband connection. Only 28% of Africans use internet. So there's a huge gap in the digitalization, in the use of internet, but all this has a specific reality which is coming from the neglection of the physical economy. Yes, it's important for Africa to leapfrog in certain sectors by going to the latest modern telecommunications technology. I don't know if you can mute whoever is muted. It's disturbing. It's very important to have this leapfrogging in technology, but there are certain basics of economics that you cannot jump over. For example, people talk about the fourth industrial revolution, fine, but without electricity, you cannot have digitalization. So that's a basic matter. Therefore, we need to focus in Africa's development on the pillars of a modern infrastructure, which is the transport, power, water, education, and healthcare. There should be what the Chinese call all-round development. You cannot develop one sector away from the other sectors. And this is what brings me to this whole idea of physical economics, and also the work of the Schiller Institute, but also the work of our Belt and Road. I would like to share with you a presentation I made to illustrate these factors. I mean, in many African countries, of course, you have a big discrepancy in every country's ability to digitalize, and many African countries are focusing on building hubs for young people like you or your colleagues in Tunisia, where you have a hub where you can have startups, you can help them with the innovation so they can lead the digitalization revolution, so to speak. But generally, the population does not have access, although this differs from one country to the other. And you will see that the most digitalized countries are the countries which have most electricity in Africa. So anyway, we believe that Africa is a great opportunity. It could become the workshop of the future, both in terms of a production capacity that can be built, but also in terms of a huge market, both for modern technology and other technologies. I was the lead author of this report or book. It's a book length, 270 pages, on extending the new Silk Road to West Asia and Africa, a vision of an economic renaissance. It was done in collaboration with other members of the Schiller Institute. And in that, we integrate this idea I talked about, which was generated by this American economist, Lyndon LaRouche, who passed away 2 years ago, is the ability to integrate all the world's infrastructure. So our vision, and I think the Belt and Road initiatives, the people behind the vision also have this idea, it's not limited to Eurasia and Africa, but Africa will be a very important part of this. Here we have the Belt and Road, different corridors marked. You have the list here, and also the Maritime Silk Road, which takes to Africa. Now, one of the biggest problems we have in dealing, I mean, the purpose of our institute is to facilitate cooperation between Europe, the United States, and China, between East and West. We are not for competition, we are for cooperation. But we see that there are certain problems in the attitude of Europe and the United States towards Africa, which makes it problematic to work with China on these. And one of the simple problems we have is that when you ask people about Africa, the first things they think about is immigration, especially among politicians, that there are lots of poor African immigrants coming to Europe. There's famine, there's civil wars, there are military coups, and this is what they know about Africa. The Chinese view of Africa is that it's actually a great opportunity. As I explained for you, this is a young continent with massive human and natural resources that are useful for all of humanity. In Europe, we have the attitude of that we should help Africa. And we have had aid programs for decades. Billions and billions of dollars were used to help African nations, but they were mismanaged and they did not lead. But the Chinese view of Africa is that we have to empower Africa to be able to be self-sufficient in certain sectors, but also utilize its human and natural resources. So they need empowerment rather than help in Africa. We have this very clear, typical picture of Africa. And this is from The Economist from different years. It was said it was the hopeless continent. Of course, that was after the massive, horrible wars in the Great Lakes region, Rwanda, Burundi, the Congo. But then you have suddenly a shift into that Africa is rising, that Africa is aspiring. The problem with this is that a lot of the misconceptions about economy and Africa's rise and fall depends on the rise and fall of the basic commodity prices. Because African nations, most of them are totally dependent on exporting raw materials and buying all their necessities. So any shift in the price of commodities, oil, gas, minerals, and so on, creates a huge crisis for the African countries. Now you see the fluctuation of the oil, gas, and metals prices is huge because we have a global crisis, financial and economic crisis that affect these prices. So the economist goes up and down in Africa, depending on the rise and fall of these. And therefore, the whole growth of GDP in Africa is tightly connected to the brown color is for the GDP growth. The blue color is the commodity prices. And you see, before the 70s, the growth in African economy was not related to the growth in raw material exports, because there was a process of real economic, physical economic development in Africa in the 50s and 60s. But then with 1970, with the fall of the Bretton Woods system and the oil crisis, we had massive fluctuations in the oil and other commodity prices. And with that followed the rise and fall in the living standards and GDP in Africa. So the African nations, and this is another problem we have in the European and American view of the question of development. The African and China led the fight in the United Nations to figure out what are the priorities of the world nations. And the Sustainable Development Goals were then put in this list of priority, because you have number 1, elimination of poverty, number 2, elimination of hunger, number 3, providing healthcare, education, equality, clean water, energy, industrialization, housing. All these are basic elements of what a human society needs to thrive. And then at the bottom, you had the question of climate action, environmental protection, and so on and so forth, because those nations cannot afford to protect the environment when people have to cut trees to provide cooking fire. But then you come to the view of the European and American and other developed nations of this sustainable, and it's all upside down. They make it so complicated, you don't really realize what is the priority of the world. And then they put the climate action, environmental protection on the top, and elimination of hunger and poverty and building infrastructure industry in the bottom. Because they say we have a climate crisis, we don't have time to build infrastructure and industry. We have to protect the environment by doing nothing in Africa and in developing nations. Because industrialization in Africa and Asia and South America will make the problem bigger. And then we have the other problem with the aid dilemma is European and American aid money goes to primitive technology. As you see here, this is widespread all over Africa. And you have to imagine the fact that these ladies will have to carry the water for many kilometers to their homes, because there's only this well. Some European organization built this well, but then the women and girls have to go and fetch that water for long distances. The alternative to this, of course, is to use modern technology to bring the water to the homes of those ladies. So anyway, we have the old colonial problem with Africa's infrastructure. To the left, you see the railways which were built by the European colonialists are from inland to the closest port, which shows you that this was intended to take out of Africa mineral and other wealth like coffee and other plantation products. Instead, what is needed in Africa is to integrate Africa's infrastructure and the nations of Africa. We have, for example, one of the big problems among African countries. Last year or the year before, the African nations ratified and signed the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which made free trade possible among the African nations without hindrance. The problem is you cannot have trade among nations if you don't have roads, railways, and other means of communication among those nations. So the tragedy is that out of all Africa's trade in the world, only 13% of African trade is with African countries. Like, for example, between Egypt and Sudan, only 1.5% of the trade of Egypt is with Sudan because you don't have the communication between these two neighboring countries. The World Bank said, if we, in this study in 2006, if we only upgrade the existing roads, small roads, other ones, we will have an increase in trade by mostly 1,000% in most of sub-Saharan Africa, or 500% or 100%, but mostly 1,000% trade will increase among African nations if we only upgrade the existing roads. So anyway, the thing is, why African nations are going to China and China is more popular. I had this image in 2018 when the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation, the FOCAC summit, was held in Beijing in early September. All the African leaders went to Beijing. Later that month, for the UN, the 70th anniversary of the UN General Assembly, less than half of the African leaders went to the UN. Because some of the African leaders say, look, when we go to China, we discuss building infrastructure, industries, agriculture, science, and when we go to the UN, we just get lectured on human rights and democracy, and nobody's offering anything. That's one reason why China is popular. The other way is China's vision of itself as a developing nation and how that can contribute to China in the 60s and also in the 70s was much poorer than many African nations. But they managed in China in 30 years to leap beyond many, many other nations. Now they are the second economy in the world. And President Xi Jinping in 2015 in the FOCAC summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, he said the following, which is interesting. He said industrialization is an inevitable path to a country's success. We in China, in the span of several decades, China has accomplished what took developing countries hundreds of years to accomplish. and put in place a complete industrial production system with an enormous, I don't see all the, okay. Put in place a complete industrial system with an enormous production capacity. It's entirely possible for Africa as the world's most promising region in terms of development potential to bring into play its advantages and achieve great success. The achievement of inclusive and sustainable development in Africa hinges on industrialization, which holds the key to creating jobs, eradicating poverty, and improving people's living standards. That's why people in Africa like to talk to the Chinese. They say, we made it, you can make it. But the President Xi Jinping, in that speech, he mentioned 3 bottlenecks of development for Africa. If Africa overcomes those 3 bottlenecks, it will achieve what China has achieved. And these 3 bottlenecks is the shortage of capital to finance the economy, shortage of skilled labor, lack of infrastructure. And he offered to help in all these 3 sectors. First, in terms of shortage of capital, China already invested $60 billion between 2005 and 2018. That's only state loans and grants, not private companies. 60 billion, and in that conference I mentioned, President Xi Jinping pledged 60 billion more between 2019 and 2022. On the shortage of skilled labor, it's interesting to find out that the number of African students studying abroad, you have on the top line, this is the number of students. Still, France is still the country which takes most African students. They want to study in France because of course, we have the colonial past and the integration of many nations' economy into the French economy. But then China, in the past few years, surpassed both the United States and Britain in the number of African students going to study in China. Also, as you see in this picture, these are the ladies who are now running the train in Kenya, between the Mombasa and Nairobi. This is the standard gauge railway. But they got courses to learn how to themselves run these trains. So China has a lot of occupational training for many, because you cannot transfer, as people suspect, it's not true that China is taking Chinese workers and engineers to do these projects, so only Chinese workers and engineers. They need African labor, but that labor needs to be skilled. So anyway, in terms of the 3rd bottleneck, lack of infrastructure, the Chinese have promised in 2014, Prime Minister Li Keqiang was in Africa, both East and West Africa, and pledged that China will help to connect all the African capitals with high-speed railway, or at least standard gauge railway. This picture itself, this is not a Chinese project. This is an African plan from the Lagos plan in 1982 to connect all the African nations with highways. We don't advise highways and trucks for long haul transport. Railways are much better, but there are African plans that have been there for many, many, many years, but nobody helped Africa to realize them. So from 2014, when China started working with African nations, we had in 3 years the Djibouti Addis Ababa railway built in 3 years in record time, because Ethiopia with 100 million people is a landlocked country, which is creating massive problems for it. But also, this is not a Chinese idea. This is a part of the Ethiopian national economic planning. It includes also building several industrial cities in different parts of Ethiopia and connecting all parts of Ethiopia with modern transport and railway and highways. Also, we had as I mentioned, the Mombasa-Nairobi railway from the port of Mombasa on the Indian Ocean to Nairobi. This was part of what is called the East Africa Master Plan. And also we have the Lamu, South Sudan, Ethiopia plan here in red. These were also plans that existed for many, many years and never were implemented. The idea is very important to connect the landlocked nations in the Great Lakes region, South Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Zambia, and so on and so forth, and going to Eastern Congo. And then from there moving, because the cost of transportation to Rwanda, Burundi, from Asia, for example, is almost 3 times more than transport from Asia to Germany, because you'll need to take the containers, for example, on very rough roads. Many of them break down on the way, and there's no security. So a lot of the cost for these nations is because of transportation. We had the Angola, Zambia, Tanzania, the Tezara railway also completed or renovated by the Chinese recently. And then we have also the idea to connect all the rivers and lakes of Africa together and create navigational programs, navigational canals for river transport. As we have in Europe, we have massive transport all the way from the Black Sea in Eastern Europe to the North Sea, going through the Rhine, the Danube, Rhine, Main rivers. And this is one of the world's busiest transport routes. It's a river transport route, but it's very, very important for Europe. Africa can do the same. We have also the ecological degradation in Africa. We have the case of Lake Chad, which has shrunk in the past 40 years to only 10% of its original size. And this means that there are 30 to 40 million people in different countries have to move because they live basically from fishing and some basic infrastructure and grazing, and they have to move to other regions, creating massive human suffering. So our Schiller Institute have been advocating the plan presented by an Italian company to bring water at only 5% of the water. I mean, the map could look complicated. If you look, this is Kenya, this is the Indian Ocean. Then you have the landlocked countries, I meant the central, the Great Lakes nations. And then you have the Eastern Congo. Now this yellow region, it's the watershed of the Congo River. On the other side, you have the watershed of the Nile River, but the two don't meet. So you have many tributaries, rivers, small rivers that collect the water from the Eastern Congo highlands into the Congo River here. So the idea is to build a canal, which is 2,000 kilometers canal, 100-meter wide, 50 meters deep, to collect some of the water from these tributaries and then move them to Central African Republic and down the Chari River to Chad and to refill the Lake Chad and create a massive agricultural zone. In the meantime, you create a transport corridor, river transport, but also you can generate power from the dams you build here for the Congolese economy, but also you connect East Africa with West Africa. So this is a massive project. 2 years ago, we actually helped to bring together people from the Lake Chad Commission, a Chinese company and the Italian company, to sign at least a memorandum of understanding to start studying this project. The problem is that there's a lot of people who are telling the Congolese they want to steal your water and so on and so forth. The World Bank is against it, the EU Commission is against it, and they're trying to organize people in Congo against it. We also have the necessity, as I said, you cannot have a digital revolution without electricity, which should be a self-evident thing. Africa has more than 100,000 megawatts hydropower potential. Most of it is in the Congo River, but also you have the Zambezi River and the Blue Nile River. If all these projects are built, I mean, this is the design of a series of dams on the Congo River. It's called the Grand Inga Dam. And this is going, if all these series of dams are built, they will be twice as large as the world's largest dam, which is in China, the Three Gorges Dam. The Three Gorges Dam also produces 20,000 megawatts of power. That's like 20 nuclear reactors. This one will produce 40,000 megawatts of electricity, which would be great wealth for Congo, but also for the neighbors of Congo. Very important. Also here, we had Chinese and Spanish companies going together to start the work on it, but then the Spanish company withdrew. The World Bank also withdrew its support for the project, so the Chinese are left alone to figure out how to do this massive project. Africa has a potential for nuclear power development. I mean, we have also the massive potential for coal power development. Now, many people say, oh, coal power, this is dangerous. But Africa, actually, the best and quickest way to get electricity to African nations is to use the massive coal reserves in Africa to build very quickly power plants based on the Chinese modern technology, which is much cleaner to build, because a coal power plant takes only 18 months to build. And it's quite effective. But then we have the future is for nuclear power. And we have in South Africa programs already in place for modern technology in fourth generation nuclear power plants. We have a fascinating development in Egypt. Egypt is now agreed to build a nuclear power plant here in Al-Dab'a in the west of the country with Russia. It's a huge power plant with 4 reactors. But what the Egyptians are doing is more fascinating, is they are building the first ever internationally a high school for nuclear technology, which doesn't exist anywhere in the same city. And these are the brightest school children in Egypt. There's a competition to get into this school. And they choose only the best in all fields of study, but also language and also other IQ tests. And they study electrotechnology, they study mechanics, they study IT and artificial intelligence. So they will be the people who will be managing many aspects of the 4 nuclear reactors, which will be built in the same city. But after each year, you will have like 70, and then it might be 200 new students will graduate. So therefore, Egypt is actually developing a labor force capable of running nuclear power plants in other countries in Africa, for example. And Russia has many agreements with African nations on nuclear technology development, and China has also to a limited extent. So the idea is, as we see it, that you have to build all-round development, which means you have to develop the transport, power, water, education, healthcare for all the African continent to be able to use, to be able to utilize and develop all the human and natural resources of Africa. And this is something which China is interested in doing. What is needed is that Europe and the United States join Africa to build this huge both workshop and market for the world. African nations have a lot of plans and aspirations for the future, but I think we should have intermediary goals like 2030, 2040, and 2050 before we go to 2063, because we need immediately massive investments in infrastructure. And now this is an image which I asked a friend to develop, the one to the right. He's an artist. The one to the left is a real picture of Africa by nighttime. And you can see the massive void due to the lack of electricity. This is what that's why they say Africa is the dark continent, because there is no electricity. Everything is dark in the night. You have small islands in South Africa and in North Africa where you have a bit better electricity supply, but the rest of Africa doesn't. So if we do all these projects in Africa, in the next 20 years, 30 years, Africa should look like this from space. So I think I stop here with my presentation. I have some other, actually other slides on connectivity between Africa and Europe from Tunis, where your colleague is there, and also through Morocco, through tunnels and bridges connecting Africa to Europe. But I think it will be too much material to present all at once. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your valuable lecture. We believe that we should promote good initiative. We should take all initiative to change people's life. I believe that governments or everyone should try to implement, should try to take good initiative for African peoples to bring light in their life, and Belt and Road Initiative will be one of these. We believe that. So now I would like to invite you three to say about your vision toward Belt and Road Initiative.
Hello.
Yes, we are listening.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this program. Warm thanks for our guest, Mr. Hussein, for his very informative speech talking about the Belt and Road and his like positives and positive aspects, how it can really help to change the people's life and so on. Thanks for our audience, like for joining us on this webinar. So first, let me share my PPT.
Yes, just a second. Just a second. I need to make you host.
Please, Mashur, enable from your side, like the screen sharing.
Yes, I have already make you as a host. You can share.
Okay.
You can share the slide with me, then I can open it.
Actually, I'm still not able to share my screen from here.
But just a second. Just a second. Let me check. Just a second. You can share.
Okay.
Just a second. I am trying again. Now you can do it. Now everything is okay.
Okay, let me see.
Yes.
Okay, it's fine.
Please double click to enter the form.
Can you?
Yes.
Okay, I think it's fine. Okay. Okay, once again, many thanks for Mr. Hussein and for our audience for joining us on this webinar. So first, let me introduce myself. So I'm Yusri, I'm CEO founder of RythmInno Technologies. I'm the Vice President of African Council for Investment and Development. I am doing like the PhD degree collaboration between the National School of Engineering between Sfax universities and Xi'an Technological Universities. Actually, I'm the winner of Internet Plus competition at the national level in China, which is like a big competition in China talking about entrepreneurship and innovation. And also like I won a preventional level prize for our projects based on blockchain technology and so on. I started my journey here in China, so like joining many competition and entrepreneurship events. So I won like many prizes and so on. Here, like maybe you can see some highlights about my journey here in China. This is like some photos about where I was like invited like to attend the China Arab Wars Financial Technology Cooperation events. With the Excellency of the Ambassador of Bahrain in Beijing. So we cannot like start this presentation like without talking about the digital aspect of the Silk Road. So the Silk Road actually is the vast vision for global connectivity and participating countries, which is going to open new markets for Chinese and international companies and driving tech and infrastructure investment. So actually like the Belt and Road is like changed from aspects to practice maybe through the last 8 years. So actually in my presentation, I'm not going to go deep on the economical side of the Belt and Road because actually our guest, Mr. Hussein, he did that very well. But I will just maybe focus on the digital side. So the digital Silk Road is actually is empowering the digital economy in China and also in the globe, which is focusing on digital economy, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, smart cities, quantum computing, and so on. So here, like for the digital Silk Road, it can be actually fragmented into many sectors. For example, the green Silk Road, the health Silk Road, the digital Silk Road, and so on. For example, maybe as you can maybe remember, like during the pandemic, like China has provided anti-pandemic emergency assistance into many countries. Which, for example, like the Chinese businesses and companies, they joined the vaccine production in BRI companies and partners such as Indonesia, Brazil, United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Morocco, and so on. So here, like some statistics about the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. So here the Belt and Road in numbers. For example, like you can see here, like the Belt and Road, there is 206 documents on BRI cooperation with 140 countries and also in 32 international organizations. So actually for our company, since like we are promoting ourselves as a digital accelerator between China and Africa, so our main focus, so we have actually laser focus on solving like problems and empowering entrepreneurship and innovation between China and Africa. So for example, when we go through the market analysis of the ecosystem here in China or even in Africa, we find many challenges and many problems that founders and entrepreneurs in China and Africa, they may face. For example, there is many reasons for startups to fail, since the startups are the base of digital economy and entrepreneurship. For example, like we can find like the market's problem, the business model failures, the poor management team, the running out of cash and lack of investments, the products problems, and so on. And also like when we take for the financial side, so like there is a lack of ecosystem transparency, which will help investors to get courage to invest their money, especially in cross-border markets and so on. So here like comes our solution and our companies, RythmInno Technologies, through our sub-brands, RythmInno for Startups, Technology and Training, where like we are trying to empower the innovation and entrepreneurship between China and Africa. Actually, RythmInno is a global innovation AI and blockchain-based platform that empower innovation and entrepreneurship along Belt and Road countries, especially between Africa and China. So RythmInno is a platform that is providing training and mentorship for startups. Our platform is a hub for many for the entrepreneurship entities, for example, the startups, mentors, talents, VC, corporates, students, and so on. So our platform is based on AI and blockchain to make a suitable and convenient ecosystem and environment for startups, founders, and so on to grow and to succeed. So our blockchain talents, investor communication and investment platform. In this platform, we are intending to revolutionize venture capital through the blockchain network that enable direct investments into talents rather than solely companies, and support an interactive and online ecosystems. So our platform is making through the generation of smart contracts, making like the deals between companies and startups, company to company, also startups to startups, and in a credible way and in official way through this technology. And this on these projects, actually, we have negotiation with the Bahrain embassy in Beijing we are going to cooperate on this project. So for our services in our company, so we are helping the companies to accelerate the adoption of emerging and impactful technologies through the partnership with startups like Chinese companies and African startups, or African companies, Chinese startups, and so on. And also this, through our platform, we are training the workforce. These companies can train their workforce about the new technology to discover, mainly also to discover cross-border ecosystem and trends and opportunities, which is very important, like for startups and company when we talk about cross-border entrepreneurship. Also many benefits for startups, like they can, for example, the founders, they can find the appropriate co-founder talents and team members, and also they can rise their sales. Also many advantages for students, like to join early stage startups and to get high training qualities based on the demand of our 2B customers. Professional mentors and investors, like they can find international startups easily and discover markets insight and to make direct investments. So in our platforms, actually, this is like how we describe our platform is enhancing the technology transfer between China and Africa. So we are supposed to set up a bridge connection between China and Africa. We are trying to help startups to find investments, to grow their businesses, to promote technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship between China and Africa. Actually, we have helped like some international startups to land successfully in China. For example, coaching programs. This program is deployed in many different countries like Malaysia, Turkey, Algeria, Morocco, South of America, and so on. So we are helping like these startups to land in China. So as you can see here, like this is this startups accredited like and is sponsored by different partners, and this program is implemented and deployed in many different countries. So this is this slide show our partnership spectrum, which, like, for example, Shanxi Venture Capital Association, China-Europe Association for Technical and Economical Cooperation, and so on. We have partnership with Amazon AWS, where we are landed actually in Xi'an. We have partners like in Africa, like OPTC, IDAM, IT African University Network, Tunisian Association for Artificial Intelligence, and so on. These slides talk about our previous events and activities in Africa. Like this is actually the first event we have organized like China North Africa Tech Forum, which is held on the 4th of July 2020. So in this event, so actually we have invited many guest speakers. For example, Mr. Mustafa Abid, like his deputy chief of mission of at the embassy of Tunisia in Beijing, and also some business and tech experts from Africa, and for example, Mr. Rex Chan, like the Secretary General of Silk and Road Development Association, and so on. Also, we have invited many startups like to pitch in front of our pool of investors, where like it was great opportunity for them to show their business, to show their products, and also to assess their product and so on. Yeah, this is also another event we have organized, like is China Africa Cooperation and Communication, where we have invited Mr. Kaisen Majri, is the head of innovation department at the Ministry of Industry, and also we have invited Mr. Abdel Basit. He is like the head of the FIPA, Foreign Investment Promotion Agency in Tunisia, and also we have invited the local government here in Xi'an in this event. Actually, we strongly believe about building, not only deploying technology and making like the partnership between China and Africa, but also we strongly believe to build community, to build ecosystem. That's why like we are trying to gather many ambassadors and coordinators in many different countries across Africa, for example, in Tunisia, Algeria, and so on. So also we have like a network of Tunisian and African talents in China. So in our community, we are trying to build an environment for networking, matchmaking, and also we are trying to enhance and to empower high-level education through our programs, for example, for training, like for kids and for seniors. And also we are trying to drive the investments and incubation opportunities for all over for startups across Africa. Our team members actually is a multinational team. Like we have like me, the CEO, founder of RythmInno Technology, Fabian from Germany, Biden Austin from Zambia, Ryan from Tunisia, Mr. Mohammed Ali is from USA, Mr. Mashur from Bangladesh, who is our host for this event today. Hind is the community manager in Tunisia, INSAF, and also our mentors from China, Mr. Hunter Chang, which is the head of Inno APAC, and Mr. Xian Xiaoming. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your valuable speech. I believe that where need light, we should bring light. Where need cooperate people to alleviate poverty, to bring new life for them. We are the company for them, because Africa is the continent where we need to do more to bring good life for African people. So thank you, Hussein Askary, for your valuable speech. But you have a question from our audience. Is Xian? He asked you how to implement digital Silk Road in African continent.
Is the question for me or for Yusri?
Maybe both of you can reply this question.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think in the big picture, China is actually building its own fiber cables in the seas to extend to other Asian countries, but also to Africa and to the Mediterranean region, because I mean, China is under enormous pressure from the West, which is explicitly saying they want to limit China's rise and development. And therefore, China has to devise alternatives to total dependency, for example, on internet cables and so on, digital cables, which are mostly dominated by the United States internationally. Everything we use goes through US built or US dominated infrastructure. So China is intending to build its own digital infrastructure to connect with the other nations on the Belt and Road Initiative, but also to even nations who are not on the Belt and Road Initiative. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, of course, is, as I said, trying to leapfrog instead of going back to the previous systems of telecommunications, the internet and other means. China is trying to build in Africa, for example, in several countries, a modern telecommunications system and digital system. So in that way, if you can both save resources, but also make the whole network more efficient. So there are certain aspects of the infrastructure you don't need. These are old systems, but you can replace them with more efficient and lower cost modern technologies, which are adapted to the new age, so to speak.
Okay, thank you so much. We got the answer, and we are getting another question from Arnold. She asked how this council can help Africa private business, like BRI.
Is talking about BRI or maybe our company?
How this council can help Africa private business. It's all about BRI.
I mean, there are I can answer one aspect, the general aspect. The Belt and Road Initiative is, and China's focus has been, especially from the state-owned companies, is to build the basic infrastructure in Africa. To provide, as I said, the platform. You need to have a platform, a physical platform upon which a society can stand. And as I said, this is transport, water, power, education, and healthcare. So China's focus is on filling that gap and also making sure, as I said, the bottlenecks, providing financing, because many institutions in the world would not give loans to African countries because, say, you have already financial problems, so you are not able to take more loans to invest in infrastructure, for example. And China is trying to relieve that aspect, because China believes that if you loan money to build infrastructure, what you do is you increase the productivity of that society, and that increased productivity will pay back. So that you don't get money from building the infrastructure, you get money from enabling that society. And also you can see, for example, all around these new ports, railways, new cities, new activities are popping up all over Africa. And private companies, entrepreneurs will benefit from the availability of transport, electricity, and connectivity, digital connectivity. Then they will start their own businesses. So also you have Chinese private companies who are very active otherwise, but it's up to the private companies in those countries to figure out how to benefit from this new infrastructure being built by China. I mean, in many Asian countries, like in Vietnam, in Thailand, and in Cambodia, you find European, Japanese, and Korean companies moving into industrial zones that were actually built by China in those countries, because it's much cheaper labor. But now that you have electricity and transport and skilled labor in those cheaper countries, those countries are moving some of their production there. So that's how it works. You first build the platform, the infrastructure, then investments come.
Thank you so much. So now we are like end of our session. So if you would like to say something special word about this event or anything else, then we want to know, then we will end our session after listening your speech.
Hello?
Hello, Hussein Askary, you are listening?
Yes, sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Okay, we are just, we will end our session after getting some good word from you about this event, or if you want to share something by this event, you can share with us. Because
yeah, well, I'm very happy that I'm sharing this event with the young people. I think the young people will be, as I said, this is the wealth of Africa and also other developing nations. the development of the human resources is very, very crucial. But I think the youth will add a totally different dimension to this development because they are oriented towards the future. They are not only oriented to solving the problems of the past, which are mostly political, or even the current problems, which are, of course, very important to resolve. But as long as the young people have their vision, their eyes on the future, they will always be able to come up with creative, innovative solutions for these problems. And I think it's very important to empower the youth by providing resources, by providing the financing and other means to enable the youth to take responsibility for this innovation into the future. And I think the whole Belt and Road Initiative is a great step into that direction, but China alone cannot solve all these countries' problems. Each country in Africa, they have to set up priorities for their own development, medium range and long range priorities, but they should focus on empowering the youth and using that enormous resource to develop their own economies, both now and into the future.
Thank you, sir. Actually, we feel honored to have with us, and we have learned so many things. We need you again and again. We believe that you always stay with us whenever we need anywhere to develop Africa or develop ourselves. So now I would like to invite Yusri bin Saleh to say something about today's event.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I just want to say maybe, actually the Belt and Road Initiative, from my point of view, actually is a huge opportunity, is huge projects, is really great opportunities for Africans, African founders, African startups, and so on. So since like the Belt and Road is like enhancing the connectivity between China and the globe. So us like in RythmInno Technologies, we are trying to enhance, like to make a secure platform that is going to link and to fill the gap between Chinese tech companies, Chinese founders, Chinese talents, and Africans. So we are trying to fill this gap. So we are really open like for partnership. We are really open like to connect, to cooperate with others on this vision, on this initiative with the like African talents and African companies and so on. We are really open for them like to cooperate and to put hand in hand on this vision. Actually, the Tunisian ecosystem and Tunisian government and so on, actually they are doing very well. As you can see now, like the Tunisian ecosystem for startups is well ranked now worldwide, maybe is 23rd worldwide. So they are doing very well. We are trying to bring more resources, more incubation program, more resources, more funds, more opportunities for them and for the others like African countries. We hope like we are trying to do our best on that. Like we are looking forward to make a further program and further steps on this vision. So maybe for our next steps, we are trying to land in Tunisia very soon in the next few months, so we can really make kind of bridge between China and Africa to enhance like the technology transfer and the cooperation between Chinese and African. So at the end of this session, I want to warmly thank Mr. Hussein for his precious time to having him like with us on these events, to share with us like his informative like presentation and speech. I want to warmly thank our audience for having time to join us and to learn and to learn from each other and to join us on these virtual environments to talk about something important for us and for our communities. Thanks for all of you and looking forward for further programs.
Thank you so much. Please.
If we wanted to get in touch with any of you guys, how is that possible?
Please I can put my email in the chat.
Yeah, we can share with our IDs, or WeChat ID or email on the chat.
Yeah, WeChat or email's good.
Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for joining our session. We'll take more and more good initiatives. We are here to promote good things that will help to change millions of people life. We have big dreams. Hope everyone will join with us. We should cooperate each other. We should try to make a good society where everyone will get a good environment to live. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hussein Askary, sir, for your valuable time. We are truly honored. And thank you, Yusri bin Saleh. Even you are so busy, you joined with us. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Our pleasure.